I'm Aaron Kyle. I'm from La Switch.
Hi there, I'm Mike Forts and welcome back to Parlour to Parlour. We're wrapping up the first leg of our swing through LA with a visit to Aaron Kyle, frontman for La Switch. If you've encountered La Switch before, you're probably already familiar with their frequent musical references to drinking. And in keeping with that spirit, we cracked open some beers and spun some records for this laid-back little chat in Aaron's place, where we got into the beginnings of La Switch and the story behind the addition of the French definite article to their name. Check it out.
I formed it with other band members before I even met Joe, because it started off with just Joe and I. We played shows. Basically, I went on tour in 2005 solo, and me and Chris, who is now our bass player, went on tour. We traveled across the country for about a month, just like playing shows and sleeping in the car or whatever, and traveling literally throughout the entire country. We stopped in New York and we played, I think, 2 shows in New York. And Joe, who I had met before through an ex-girlfriend, I had asked my ex-girlfriend and him to play on this record that I was going to sell while I was on tour. And it was just like, we recorded live in 6 hours, like, you know, like really stripped down, you know, like he was playing, I gave him a suitcase and he had some bongos and some like shakies and stuff, and then she was playing upright bass and I played my acoustic guitar, and we recorded all live in 6 hours. It was like 12 tracks, and it was the second solo record that I put out, and I went on tour with that. And then I saw Joe's from New York, and he was visiting his parents and he was playing a show there. And we got together while we were in New York, and he played a full kit finally, and I was playing acoustic, and we played 2 shows together. And I was like, well, when we get back to LA, let's play more. So we started doing these shows in LA, just the 2 of us as The Switch, and that was Aaron Kyle. And it's just sort of morphed from there, you know. And that was the beginning of 2006, I guess. My buddy Ben painted it for our CD release show, for our first EP, Hello Today. And yeah, I don't think we made any posters. That was the only poster made. And he painted the painting, and it went up in Sea Level Records when they were still around in Echo Park. And
Free beer and barbecue.
yeah, there was free beer, barbecue, and there was cake.
Cake? What kind of cake?
My mom made a cake of the top of the CD. I wish I had a copy of it to show you, but on the CD there was this like bird design or whatever, and it was actually on the CD, and she got the actual bird printed on the cake from a JPEG image, and so we had this big cake that said congratulations. That was after we put the EP out in 2007, and we had already had, that's when everybody had finally joined, and Maria came along, and Josh, and Chris, and we put this out. And actually, I think the reason why that happened was because Joe, strangely enough, went to grammar school with this kid in New York who was in a band called The Switch in New York. And I think their moms ended up talking and telling each other that their sons were in this band called The Switch. This kid got weird and jealous about it, and I guess owned the copyright or whatever to the name, and then sent us a cease and desist. Like, could have called us and said, hey, let's try to work something out, yeah. But instead, like, literally sent me a form letter, like, cease and desist notice through email that it, like, some lawyer drafted up. And I was like, well, fuck it. You know, like, what am I gonna do with that?
So where did the French pronoun come from?
A bartender at Spaceland, a really good friend of mine. She was like, why don't you just call it La Switch? We went 6 months trying to figure out a new name. Like, literally, like, it became like the biggest laughing joke between the band. because it was like everybody had this new fucking ridiculous name for it. You know what I mean? Oh, Oof Arted. That was one of the band names.
Oof, art.
That's how ridiculous it got. It got to the point of Oof Arted. That was going to be our band name.
Glad they decided against that one. And another great decision they made was to contribute a cover of Paul McCartney's Monkberry Moon Delight to the Ram on LA compilation released by the LA indie music blog Aquarium Drunkard earlier this year. Apparently the entire project was supposed to unfold in a completely different way than it did, as Aaron explains.
We were just going to form a super group, and it was going to be like, you know, some kids from Division Day, us, there's going to be some kids from Tandemoro, and we're going to try and get like people involved and like just form a super group of just, you know, like 10 musicians and just like go into the studio and record the entire record all together, you know what I mean? And then that became more of a project than we even wanted to deal with, and then we kept on talking about it to Justin, and he was like, man, why don't we just get every band to, you know, make a compilation out of it instead of doing like the whole supergroup thing and, you know, getting it done. And so he brought it up as like the compilation idea, but we were all obsessed with the record, you know, and we just wanted to like do something with it because, like, you know, it's a record that not many people know about, but I think it's by far one of his best solo records, you know. Yeah.
McCartney fan in me obviously found this to be an especially endearing part of the Liz Switch story, and it just got better once we started taking a peek at Aaron's records. Between the Beatles records on his wall, some Dr. John, Leon Russell, and Wilson Pickett, it was a pretty sweet collection. And this is where we found out that Aaron only recently, kind of, got on board with the Rolling Stones.
Actually, a friend of mine, we got into a long argument one night about how I used to just hate the Stones, and I thought that they were just kind of bullshit, and I still do, to a certain extent. We actually started this record club where we would send each other, you know, 5 new CDs. You know, we'd give each other 5 discs that we thought that person should listen to that he's never heard of or ever had. Mm-hmm. So he gave me Sticky Fingers as like one of our beginning titles was like Sticky Fingers, because he was like, well, if you hate the Stones, tell me that you hate this record. And it's a brilliant record. It's really good.
Right on. How can you go wrong with Sticky Fingers? Well, before we head out of LA, we've got a short peek at Liz Switch's practice space as Aaron takes us out with an acoustic performance of You and I from the band's latest EP, The Devil Needs a Cough Drop. And of course, we got a couple downloads for you too. Thanks for hanging with us, and I'll see you next week when we head up to Seattle to visit the one band in this series to successfully ply me with liquor. Enjoy.
Say there's nothing like you and I.